potential fine of $125 million. We're actually taking most of that back, including the interest that had been earned along the way.
When you say most of the $125 million you had parked in that little fund in case of the worst case scenario, what's left? Can you give us some?
The SEC is going to end up with a $50 million. The U.S. government's going to get $50 million. We even talked about making that available in XRP. But look, at the end of the day, this is a major step forward. I think if you kind of zoom out and look at this, the Trump administration is absolutely living up to their promises. Guy David Sachs leading the effort at the White House, Scott Bessent, and certainly now Paul Atkins getting confirmed, I think, yesterday.
Yes.
These are people who are focused on how do we make sure this is an industry that can thrive at home with sensible regulation, common sense. And that's not what we had for the last 4 years.
Could Ripple really pay their fine, their $50 million fine in XRP? It's one of those crypto things that just seems like it's not possible. But if you take a step back and really look at this, it might go down. Brad Garlinghouse may have let the cat out the bag. Think of this. SEC, they don't get to keep those fines and penalties. They don't use that to pay their operating revenue. The chair doesn't stuff that money in their pocket. It's turned over to the Treasury. And currently, what is the Treasury doing? Well, they're building 2 crypto portfolios, and they're looking for budget-neutral ways to build that portfolio out. They don't want to spend taxpayer dollars to acquire more crypto, but if Ripple was to pay that fine, $50 million, and do so with XRP, well, maybe that would be something they'd be interested in. They would get more crypto in the portfolio and help build that out without spending, again, taxpayer dollars. Now, on the flip side, the SEC, I don't think they really want to collect on this debt, but you got to go to Judge Torres and get this accepted if you want this cleared quickly. You don't want to go to appeals. You don't want to wait for new regulations. And so she's going to make them pay something. She ruled they broke the law. It's not fair. Everyone else got off for free. The SEC, again, would probably let them out of this if they could, but their hands are tied here. So this is one way you could fulfill that judgment. And it's like, we're not taking your money, but it's almost like a marketing expense in a lot of ways. If you were able to get $50 million in XRP in that, crypto reserve, that would be absolutely huge for XRP, help build up the United States holdings in cryptocurrencies. I think it would be bullish for everyone. And, you can't make up for what has happened in the last 4.5 years with that court case that was so damaging, but you can do what you can. And that would be a big one. It would be great for Ripple, the company. It'd be great for XRP in the crypto space. And it would be at least a good gesture. And it may happen. It really may. With Scott Bessent, they're managing actively the altcoin portfolio that the U.S. is going to hold. Hey, I think it's a great mechanism. It just may happen. We see Brad Garlinghouse stating the following: great to be back on Fox News today to chat about Ripple's historic acquisition of Prime Broker, Hidden Road, and what it means for the broader crypto space. Again, he talks about this as a time to expand. We're going to be integrating with traditional finance because of this great environment we find ourselves in, where it's actually possible to do real deals. Before, you couldn't do it because the SEC, they might just sue you to oblivion. Now deals like this are possible, and they're really building something significant here. The U.S. takes much needed pro-innovation approach with new leadership. We're moving past the SEC's war on crypto and entering the next phase of the market. That's exciting. That's exciting for Ripple. That's exciting for XRP. That's exciting for the entire industry. And he says the following. This is interesting. True institutional flows integrating with decentralized finance. That's going to be the big play for XRP Ledger as we build out this hub that connects traditional finance, other blockchains, and allows people to both trade and manage their portfolios, RWAs, real world assets, stocks, bonds, real estate, and also their digital assets. This is a big one, and I think it really clears the way in a significant manner. Justin, Binance founder, this is being reported by Wall Street Journal, that CZ gave evidence against Justin Sun as part of his DOJ plea deal. So we'll see how this plays out. Justin Sun seems to evade everything and somehow keeps ticking along. Did CZ give him something that will sink him someday? Hopefully not, but that's what's being reported. I'm not a Tron investor. I don't have any investment in that ecosystem, but again, hopefully that didn't happen. Empower US. Is this not a bunch of bull? Are you kidding me? They've obtained the Hinman IG report. Wait till you hear this quote. Even if Hinman had a financial interest in Ethereum, even if, I think we could upgrade that to he actually did, his 2018 speech would not amount to a conflict of interest on Hinman's part. No one's looking to dig up those bones, man. No one wants to see what's going on in that closet. And we know it was shady, but as I've been saying, this thing is dead. They're not going back. ETHgate is over. And, I wish people did improper things. People like Hinman, I wish they were held accountable, but I just don't buy it. Maybe I'll be surprised. Breaking, SEC proposes regulatory sandbox for crypto innovation. The acting chair has announced plans for a regulatory sandbox that can reshape the U.S. crypto landscape. Now, here's the thing. Most of these tokens that are trading, they're not securities, but that's not what we need the sandbox for. They say exchanges like Coinbase and Uniswap could soon operate with conditional exemption relief, allowing them to test tokenized securities and blockchain-based trading models without fear of immediate enforcement. So it gives them some time to figure this all out. There's a lot of products that probably should be registered, and they just don't have that ability as of yet. You could have yield-bearing stuff where you have a token on the DeFi or the decentralized exchange, and you're getting part, almost like dividends from that exchange, from the revenue it's making, like all that infrastructure set up, but they don't have that yet quite because no one wants to be afoul of the law. Well, now they can start testing this stuff out. I think it's going to be very popular, and eventually there'll be a registration process. But, at least this way you could go out there and build the future, even if it's something that's kind of towing the line to a security, that's okay. You can build that in a compliant manner. And when we get the regulations, when they figure out policy, then you can register that and do the needed reporting. This doesn't put the brakes on things. You can go out there and build with the knowledge that, you have this exemption, and when they come out with new laws, you can then comply with them. This opens the door for new revenue streams, accelerating DeFi adoption, very important, and expanding government use cases, across the space. Governance use cases across the space. So this could be a big boom for crypto. We really need it. Tom Lee, this is why I say you got to be careful. You got to watch out. You can't be super bearish right now. You can't just sell out of everything and go home. And this is the reason why. Listen to this.
Hear views of, well, it's really hard to get uber bearish now because a headline at any moment, as I said in the open here, the market is waiting so hard for some bit of good news that if you're on the wrong side of that, you get a day like you had on Wednesday.
Yes. I mean, if I was to oversimplify the framing of this, U.S. and China have absurd levels of reciprocal tariffs at the moment. And if you believe those are in place, then the global economy is in trouble and you should be bearish. But if this is a matter of who makes the overture first or blinks, but we know it de-escalates, then I think the downside has largely, it comes off dramatically, and I think stocks can actually do really well into the rest of the year.
These tariff levels are not going to stay like this forever, either the United States or China's. It's just a question of how long does this continue, this dispute go between these two countries. We'll probably end up at some resolution that's better for both sides once this is all said and done. I don't believe that this is going to be 5 years from now. We look back and we have 100-something% on China. They have 80-something% back on us. Like, that ain't going to happen, people. Not saying there's not significant risk there, but that's the problem. At any moment, this is kind of a manufactured, a man-made thing, a squabble between two countries. Yeah, there's a lot of other trade deals going on out there. U.S. and China is the one to focus on. That's the big one. That's the toughest one to figure out here. But, at any moment, you sell out, you go home, who knows what's going to be announced? Like some historic deal between these two, or just some stopping of what's going on right now. And this space is going to erupt. Everyone's waiting for it. We saw a small taste of that earlier in the week when, just the broader tariffs, the reciprocal ones, were put on pause. You saw what the market did. You can imagine once U.S. and China come to some sort of resolution. And so it comes down to, what do you think? If you think this is going to continue on for 2-3 years, and I don't know what you'd invest in to escape that type of pain and misery. Personally, myself, I'm not buying it. I don't think it's going to stay like this. I don't care who the first one to say, hey, let's do a deal. I just hope one of the two sides does it sooner than later. And again, it's a negotiation. They'll work it out. Business will prevail. And that's just the way I'm seeing it. I'm not saying things won't change. We're not entering a new world order in terms of global trade and finance and things like that. Yes, that's all true, but still, deals are going to happen, I feel, and it's not going to take all that long. Let's hope at least. Today, it was announced that, the Federal Reserve, the Fed possesses the tools to inject more liquidity, to save the bond market, to save any disruption we have out there. They're already starting to talk about this. We know we're getting darn close. They have to bring those rates down. They're going to have to enter into quantitative easing. I don't know exactly when that happens. I just know, especially with the U.S. having to refinance trillions of dollars in debt this year, they're going to have to do something. It's just a matter of time, and they're already starting to admit it. Like, hey, there's some problems. We can step in here, alleviate that issue. It's going to happen. It's just a waiting game here, and it could break loose at any moment in time. Back to what Tom Lee's saying. You're really looking for two things: these trade disputes to come to an end, and also that pivot by the Fed. And when those two things happen, it's going to be on like Donkey Kong all over Red Rover. Michael Saylor, this guy's such a nut. I really hope that we get by this and the market goes up and he doesn't have any problems. But I'm telling you, the guy's a wild gambler, and if this situation doesn't get him, something will someday. I've been beating on this issue nonstop because it's true. It's unacceptable. He's gambling with too much leverage, and he's issuing preferred stock where he's got to pay out these dividends, and he doesn't have the revenue to do that. And all of his value is in a very volatile asset, and he just doesn't have the business to be servicing that kind of debt or those types of dividends. And I don't care what anyone says, this is going to end up horribly. Now, by the end of this bull run, and I still feel we're in a growth phase, we're just waiting for market conditions to send us flying up to a higher level. By the end of this, he'll be at a spot where he could cash out, he could stop, and I think all will be well, but he ain't gonna. He's going to keep doubling down, doubling down, doubling down. It will never be enough. And again, he will run into a buzzsaw either now or later, and it's going to take the whole thing down. It's really a shame. You saw in those disclosures that MicroStrategies or Strategy put out recently where they said, we might have to sell some Bitcoin to satisfy some debt at levels lower than we bought it for. Like, I don't think they put that in before, and it should have been. It should have been made clear to investors because he's a flim-flam man. He's like, talking around the issue. There is no zero risk leverage. It just doesn't exist. Let me know what you think down below. As always, please like, please subscribe. The revolution will be televised right here on Jungle Link.